Well, good morning and welcome back to another Talk Tuesdays. Apologies for the seemingly disco reflecting off my face. Going to go through maybe two prints, just to get in a couple of prints ready for the store. And I thought it would be a good opportunity just to walk through some of the things that I do to prepare for a print. Now, I'll link up here. Obviously, earlier this year I had quite a few issues with printing. But thankfully, since working through those, things seem to be behaving themselves. Now, I haven't printed anything in a few weeks, and the Epson printers, I believe, suffer more than the Canon printers when you leave them for an extended period of time. So just be aware of that. So there's a couple of things that obviously I do before I start printing. I'll do a nozzle clean, and just to make sure that everything's kind of okay from that perspective. Even if I sometimes did the nozzle check first of all, and that looked okay. I didn't do the nozzle clean, but I kind of do it the other way around. Irrespective, if I haven't printed in a number of weeks, then I'll do the nozzle clean, and then I'll do the nozzle check just to make sure that everything is okay. I then, as a matter of fact, now I do this on a regular basis anyway, but I will then re-profile, recalibrate the monitor using the iProfiler, a little device that you plug into your laptop, and it runs a profile on that particular monitor. Now, generally when I've done the reprofiling on this, in fact, hang on, it's asking me to do something right now. Yeah, it was just asking me to take the little measurement thing off. You can also have it set up that it records ambient light and then can sort of readjust the brightness of the monitor based upon the ambient light. I don't really use that often. I always make sure that if I'm going to, especially if I'm going to be doing a printing session, but I quite often will do it even if I'm not printing, just making sure that the monitor hasn't been, Nicola will sometimes use this monitor for her work, and I've no idea whether she has popped up the brightness or not, but as you can see on this case, the luminance was actually quite close. Now, if the luminance is showing slightly higher, I always like to bring it to one notch below the recommended luminance. I would rather the screen be a little bit too dark, just by a couple of notches. Or lumens, I guess. Lumens. Just flashback to childhood memories there. So I'd rather have that sort of a notch or one or two below. Let it do its calibration, and then we're ready to look at the image that we're hoping to get ready to print today. So let's jump on over to the screen and take a look at one of the first images that I'm hoping to print. So this was a beautiful morning along the Causeway Coast, very famous location, Ballintoy, used in the Game of Thrones, I believe. Still not watched an episode of that. It was one of those mornings where the light developed. Could have maybe wished for a little bit more colour in those clouds, but the light illuminating the foreground and the rocks, and just at that moment there was a little gap in the clouds that also allowed the light to illuminate all the way along to the Giant's Causeway in the distance. Really beautiful morning. So this is one of the first ones that I'm going to look to print. Now, I generally print with 3 different types of paper. The platinum etching, the smooth cotton, which are both matte papers, and then the platinum burrata, which is a gloss paper, all 3 from the wonderful guys at PhotoSpeed. Now, I would have looked at an image such as this back in the day, and I would have immediately went, because of the deep colours and the sort of the saturation, let's just put this on platinum burrata, the gloss paper, which is extremely forgiving for a novice printer. However, the flexibility that gloss paper gives you, there's just something a notch above, that if you get a print right on matte paper, I think it just looks fantastic. So I'm going to try and get this print looking, well, sellable and ready for the print store using the platinum etching. I just think there's enough texture. The platinum etching is a slightly textured paper, and I think there's just enough texture in those, in the foreground sort of harbour walls, the little stone cafe obviously, and the surrounding rocks, that I think if I can get this right, it will look rather nice. Now, one of the things that I normally do when I'm looking at a print first time is I like to print out a hard copy, just a small version. Now, obviously within Lightroom, you do have the option to do soft proofing, and you can see here that I've got it set up soft proofing with the destination gamut warning on, with the custom profile for platinum etching 285. Now, ignoring the fact, so simulating obviously the paper and ink, ignoring the fact that we have this slightly washed out look, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is obviously the red blotches, and that is showing us that there's a destination gamut warning. And without getting into the kind of nuts and bolts of that, because I don't 100% know how to kind of articulate it, it's basically telling me that the combination of paper and ink won't be able to get exactly the color that's actually showing up under these, and it will try to match a color quite close to that particular color that it was originally going for. If I was to put this on the Platinum Barata, you can see that all of that disappears, which used to be my go-to. Okay, we've got some gamut warnings, let's just take the easy way out and print on a glossy paper. So one of the first things that I'm going to have to do is switch the inks across from photo black to matte black. Now, because I'm using the PhotoSpeed ink flow system, which if you're not aware of what that is, it's 125 mil, I think they may even come in bigger ones, but 125 mil refill jars for your cartridges. And the long and the short is you get much more bang for your buck in terms of prints for the cost. I think it reduces the, actually I'll throw up on screen what the percentage that PhotoSpeed says it reduces, but certainly my experience has been that there's a great saving there. So I'm going to have to switch this across. Now, because I'm using the ink flow system, there's always going to be a mismatch between what the printer thinks is going on with the cartridges and what I know is going on with the cartridges in terms of how full they are. With all of the other cartridges, if you get a warning that your ink has run out, all you need to do is, as long as you've refilled it, all you need to do is take the cartridge out, pop it back in again, and it'll kind of reset the clock. That's not the case with the Photo Black and the Matte Black. And so what PhotoSpeed kindly do is they also send you a couple of replacement Photo Black and Matte Black chips. And so if I was to get the warning when I'm switching this across to Matte Black that I've run out of ink, all I would need to do would be to take out the Matte Black cartridge, put in one of these new chips, put it back in again, do the ink change, and then the important thing is change it back over to the original cartridge again. But we'll see whether or not we have to do that, or whether we get lucky and there's enough ink, or the printer thinks there's enough ink left to do the changeover. So it looks like we got lucky there. No need to change the chips over. So we can go ahead and do our first test hard proof print. So gone ahead and loaded the printer with platinum etching paper, and we have our paper set up A3 size, and we have reduced the cell size here to a 5x3, and that will allow me on this one A3 bit of paper to hopefully get 8 different proofs. Now, not necessarily 8 proofs of the same print. Sometimes prints do take a while, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get it closer to that, maybe with only a handful of prints, but we'll have to wait and see. So the important thing is we're using the platinum etching profile set up with A3 paper, and we can go ahead and hit the print. And that will take a few minutes to whirl through and print out. So we'll catch up when it has come out. It's It's actually a couple of days since I printed out the image. I like to review the images with natural light, and it had started to get quite dark, so, and I didn't get around to doing anything yesterday, so that's why I look a little bit different today, apart from the Movember. So interesting, the image itself, I don't think needs a huge amount of tweaking. I'm quite happy with the overall tone. I kind of keep looking over here to my left because it's sitting beside me here. Let me just... So I'm actually sort of relatively happy with the overall tone of the image. And certainly those out of gamut warnings that I was getting, as I had said earlier, I kind of get a feeling, especially in landscape images, that as long as it isn't completely, awash with gamut warnings, you normally get away with it. And interestingly, I had made a comment on one of On Landscapes videos that I'd been watching. Joe Cornish was talking about his printing, printing out a particular image, and I'd made a comment, and Joe actually emailed me back and gave me a few pointers on various bits and pieces, including gamut warnings as well. So that was a nice surprise. I sometimes struggle, now I'm not sure how good, I'll kind of show you here as well, I'm not sure how good that's going to come out, but I'll show you a little video as well. I sometimes struggle with how the textured paper makes clouds look. Now, the clouds themselves in this image are quite textured, and that's why I kind of went for the platinum etching. Even though the texture works well in some situations, I just think the texture here maybe doesn't, it's almost like you're going against the grain a little bit. The only way I can probably describe it, that there's texture where maybe you don't want texture in the clouds, or the texture seems to be going against the direction of the clouds, which I find just a little bit off-putting. So with that in mind, what I'll probably end up doing now is printing it out on the other matte paper that I use, and that's smooth cotton. But before I get to that, I will just do a couple of little tweaks on this particular image. I just think maybe the overall brightness just needs a touch, just a touch, not too far. Obviously, because I've got the calibrated monitor, and I'm obviously editing on that calibrated monitor with a proper luminance, it means that I shouldn't see dark images, and that's certainly not what I'm seeing. But I just think that maybe just a touch. And again, I'm still learning my trade as printing out, and that's why I've been very cautious not to release more images on the website. Each image that I have for sale, I've actually been through countless iterations to try to get the best print that I want. I would love to be able to offer more prints for sale, and certainly I get the odd email coming in saying, oh, I'd like this one. But I'm also very cautious that I don't just want to offer a print for sale that doesn't have the same look, feeling that I want. But what I think I'll do here, I'll tweak the luminance of the brightness a little bit on this particular image. I don't think it needs anything else. I'm really happy with the comparison. Speaking of comparison, and this was something that Joe and Tim Parkin talked about in the video, and it's something that I have been guilty of. Do not, I'm holding up this print now against the actual monitor. Don't do that. Even before you do soft proofing, you're never going to get a like for like, and it can be quite disheartening looking at an image on screen and looking at an image on print. Certainly what is recommended is, if you're going to look at your image on screen, kind of look away for however long, maybe 30 seconds or so, and then look at your image on the paper, and vice versa. What I used to do when I was printing out was I would hold the print up against the screen, and immediately you kind of go, this isn't really what I'm looking for. So let's jump back over to the screen, and we'll do a couple of tweaks, and then we'll do another print. So I've switched off the gamut warnings for now, and obviously we're in the proof preview. So I kind of think, looking at the image itself, I don't think the overall feel of the image is dark. Maybe just bring out some more, just a touch more of the brightness down in this bottom left hand corner, not a huge amount. So obviously with that there, I'll go ahead and pull in a graduated filter. Let's just reset that first of all. Well, actually, because I've pulled in a graduated filter under soft proofing conditions, it will now ask me, do I want to create a proof copy, which I always do. So create a proof copy, and we'll go ahead and just reset that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring out, just going to pull up the luminance just a touch. So three stops. And then I'm going to drag this up just a notch. And of course, all I'm really wanting to do is bring out the luminance here. And if we hover over the mouse, you can see actually it's going to be bringing out some luminance up here as well. So there's a couple of ways I probably could get away with this. So let's just see whether this works. If I do a range mask and do a color range mask, and then let's just choose using the color picker. So let's just see how that is. So we'll choose this one and we'll choose in maybe in here. And then if I reset that, and now over the top. So that still is a little bit too much. I could probably just erase that. Go ahead and just erase from up here. I don't want any brightness additions to come up in that area. And we'll just remove some more of that brightness here. Okay, could probably just remove a little bit more from there as well. Okay, so now all we're doing is this area down here and bringing out a little bit more of the light along this area. So we hit OK on that. Just one thing as well, whenever you're doing this kind of test proofing, hard proofing, and obviously you're splitting the images up across the, in my case, this sort of 5x3, just remember to put the paper in the right way round. Otherwise you could get kind of, as in upside down, otherwise you could get images overlapping on each other. But so I've gone ahead and printed that image out. Now again, you're not going to be able to probably notice too much on that, and I'll put a little iPhone image up, but there's definitely, all that's done is it's just given a little bit more sort of, there's a little bit of early morning reflection of the cafe and of the surrounding sort of stone pier that sort of spreads to the front of the image, and that's just lifted that, just in my opinion, just a touch. Still not 100% sure about the texture in the clouds. Now the other thing that Joe mentioned in his, not something that I've really sort of played about with too much, obviously what you have in Lightroom, just we'll switch back quickly over. So obviously if we go back into the develop module and bring up the soft proofing again, basically you have perceptual and you have relative. Now my understanding is that obviously perceptual, what it will do, it will change all colors in the image to within the gamut of your destination, your printer stroke paper, whereas relative intent will only change the colors of the out of gamut colors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to make another test print with relative. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that is interesting. As you can see, the switch from perceptual to relative brings in what seemingly a darker image, and certainly that's what I'm seeing on the print as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tweak the overall brightness just a touch. I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, but what we'll do is we'll just knock the brightness up, and again this is on my soft proof by 3 stops, and we'll go ahead and we will give that a print now. So that's the 4th hard proof copy that I've done, and this is with a little bit of a tweak to the brightness in the bottom left hand corner. The overall brightness increased as well because we've switched over from perceptual to relative. Now, as you can probably see on the video, and even to the naked eye, the changes are very subtle. And that's of course what you want. And one of the things that I've learned is we have to be careful that, if I were to put any of these images on a print right now, they'd probably be acceptable to others, because of course they're only seeing that one particular print. And so this is where we've got to be careful that we don't get too much down into the woods, tweaking. The one thing I would say is, and I don't like saying this because the older I get, the less saturation I need. Maybe just a slight little boost in the overall colour. But what I'm going to do now, and what I will often do at this stage, is I like to now live with the print for a while. Obviously at the moment we've only printed out on the platinum etching, and I did say that I was going to also do a printout on the smooth cotton, which I will do. But what I'll do now is I'll live with these 4 prints for a period of time, at least 2 or 3 days, probably a bit more, maybe even up to a week. I'll pin them up on my board here, so I'm always sort of looking at them. I actually sometimes like to live with, I don't get a lot of natural light coming in here, so what sometimes I will do is I will go and I will, Nicola gets a little bit frustrated, but I will go and pin it up somewhere around the house, just where there's some natural light coming in, just so I can actually spend a little bit of time with it. Just allows me to sort of live with the print, live with it under natural lighting conditions or different lighting conditions. But I'm quite pleased with the overall tone, maybe just a slight boost. As I say, the only thing I want to compare this with is whether I get anything better looking from the smooth cotton, which is a smoother finish paper. And of course we haven't yet even got into any types of print sharpening, which of course again is, I think, to taste more than anything. You would like to think and hope that most of the sharpening in your image will actually come from the lens itself, rather than adding too much sharpening. But there might be a need for a little bit of sharpening, sort of specific sharpening, maybe around some of the edges of the texture of the stonework. But I'm going to leave things there because I think this video has now gone on for quite a bit of time, and I know I said at the start of the video that we might try to get a couple of prints ready for the store, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight into my own workflow when I'm looking to prepare a print for sale. It normally takes a good couple of weeks for me to kind of go through the various steps. It is hugely enjoyable. I love holding my own prints, and certainly since I've now got a better handle on my home print setup, I'm really enjoying printing. It can still be extremely frustrating. It's lovely when a print comes out without, and I mean this has come out without too much tweaking. Still really enjoying it. But I hope you've enjoyed this little insight into my printing workflow. I may follow this up in the future with another sort of getting a print prepared, and maybe at the start of that video I'll talk a little bit more about any additional tweaks that we did with this particular image. But until then, hope you've enjoyed watching this, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.